All right. So I will pass it over to our panelists in a bit, but before then, I just wanted to first introduce myself. I'm Byron Menson. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator with the Virginia Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts. And so I coordinate the state Envirothon program and competition. So I'm super excited to have this today and really get some good discussion about, you know, coaching and tips and tricks. And that's really what I'd like from tonight is I've got some questions set aside for our panelists, but I'd love as we go through things, if you've got a question, write it in the chat or come off mute. Like, let's really have this be a discussion and kind of a Q&A. And I want you all to get the most out of this. So if you have a burning question or you would love to know how someone else does something in this program, please ask it because I might not have thought of that question and you would have. So anyways, like I said, I am recording this. So if you do have to pop out and you can't stay for the whole thing, but you want to watch it later, you will be able to. I'll put it on our website and also send the link out to everyone. It'll be on our YouTube, all that good stuff. And then there's also a couple things coming up with Envirothon that you may be interested in. So, and I will put links to all of these things that I'm talking about in the chat, so you'll have links to them. So the first one is that we just released a new Envirothon newsletter, which is a brand new thing. We've never done it before, so it's pretty exciting. And it is going to be a great, oh my gosh, that link is so long. Wow. It's going to be a great place for just dates, new resources, training opportunities, fun things, stories, anything you can think of. So I really recommend you sign up for that newsletter, go check out the first edition. And, I think it'll be a great resource for coaches, especially to kind of stay in the know of what's happening with the Envirothon program. With that being said, your local soil and water conservation district is still going to be one of your best resources. So always make sure that you're staying in touch with them for local opportunities and things of that nature. Secondly is we have a special topic training coming up in February. So it will be featuring some folks from different state agencies to talk about non-point source pollution, which is the special topic for Envirothon this year. And it's going to be virtual and it's February 24th at 4 p.m. So definitely put that on your calendar, put that on your kids' calendars. And again, that one will be recorded. So if you're not available, it'll go on our website, all that good stuff. But I would love to have y'all join in live. And then we also have a virtual content training happening in March. No date has been set for this yet, but stay tuned because we are going to be doing something else in March. And then finally, since it was relevant to this crew, I wanted to make sure that I shared the link to the coach's handbook that we have, which is just a little typed up document that has some of the, things that we might cover today, some tips and tricks or learning objectives or things just in that realm that if you're a new coach or even if you're an old coach, they could be helpful tips for you. So I went ahead and linked that so that you have it. It seems like right now we still only have Rebecca and Kim, but I would love to just move all ahead and introduce them, and I guess more so have them introduce themselves, and then we can kind of get into it. So Rebecca and Kim, thank you both so much for being here. And if you'll just introduce yourself and kind of what your role in Envirothon is, how long you've been doing it, all that good stuff.
Sure. You want to go first, Kim?
Kim, I don't know if we can hear you, unfortunately.
Okay, I'll let her troubleshoot that and I'll go first. So my name is Rebecca Elton. I am one of the coaches at Jamestown High School in Williamsburg, Virginia. So we're in the Colonial Soil Water Conservation District. And I have been one of the coaches for that team since 2011, so 15 years now. And we have had a team since 1997 when the team started. So I think my role on this panel would definitely just be a program with a lot of back experience and kind of like and experience going to both states and the international competition. And so any questions that can dive into my expertise, please feel free to ask.
Kim, do you want to give it another try?
Okay, this is microphone number 1.
You
All
got it.
right. Hi, my name is Kim Martinak. I have been an Envirothon coach, we think, since 2006. So that's quite a long time. There was an Envirothon program here at my high school that I was not involved with, and then there wasn't one for a while, and then I picked it up. So I've been doing this for a long time. I have also been to the state and international competition, and not as often as Rebecca, but been there a couple times. So I have some feedback that I can give on that too. And I have never spoken on a Zoom. So I made it through 2020 without doing it. So I don't really know what else you guys want me to say.
That's impressive. But thank you both so much for being here. We also do have Rochelle Deal. And Rochelle is another one of our coaches that we asked to be on this panel. So Rochelle, do you mind hopping on and just introducing yourself and kind of what your experience with Envirothon is?
Okay. Hey, I didn't know that my phone would work. If we have internet outage all in our area. So I at first thought I'm not gonna be able to get on the Zoom meeting. Sorry. But yeah, I have been the coach at Air School. This is starting my 3rd season. So I still feel like I'm learning as I go. We did make it to state this last year. I was on Air School's Envirothon team myself in 2001 and 2, I think the years were. Air High School did not have an Envirothon team, so I picked that up the first year that I moved to the high school. And I'm located in Grundy, Virginia.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. So like I said, I've got a couple of questions that I've prepared, but as we're talking, please get in the chats, come off mute, like ask your questions. Let's have this be a discussion. So my first question, which you've kind of already all touched on, was how did you first start with Envirothon? And I guess the second part of that is what keeps you coming back?
So I started because my lovely co-coach, Mr. Dubé, when I took over his teaching position when he retired, he basically said, you should do Envirothon and I'll still do all the work, but you can put it on your resume because it looks good to administrators for you to do all these extracurricular activities. But of course, he said that, but he actually knew that it was right in line with my interests and that I would, of course, fall in love with the program. And so then they didn't have to ask me to stay after that first year, but that's how he got me involved. And the reason I stay is because the program is great at connecting real world problems and having kids learn how to do critical thinking skills and apply their knowledge to actually solve real world problems, which is what we need kids to be doing. And that's the way we need kids to be learning right now. So the kids keep me coming back because they are just great. And they teach me as much as I teach them. And it's just a great experience every year.
I got in, I think because my education coordinator was like, you should host a team. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll try it. And then my start was really slow. So I was the 4th place team out of 4 teams for like the first 10 years that I coached. And that's fine because I learned a lot. I kept coming back because I think Envirothon is super interesting. What I love about it is all of the things that I learn are things that are around. And as a homeowner, like most of the things I learn also apply to my land. And then I can also like teach kids a lot of real world applications. So by trade, I'm a chemistry teacher, which there are zero real world applications. Like chemistry that you learn in high school has nothing to do with anything, whereas Envirothon has everything to do with everything that you can see around you. So that is why I kept coming back to the program.
Rochelle, I don't know if you have signal or if it's spotty. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm multitasking with you all this evening.
All good.
I like I said a few minutes ago, Air School did not have a program. So the other school in the county that I went to and graduated from did. So when the Soil and Water Conservation District employee approached me, I knew what it was, so I took right up with it. I had forgotten how much of that I enjoyed it, but it brought back a lot of memories from my high school days and with my students. A lot of students just don't realize how many jobs and how much conservation that that's what I told the class today. I was like, guys, you do a lot of this stuff, you just don't realize it. So I want to continue that with my students and have them more involved.
Awesome. And we actually already have some questions in the chat. So this first one is for those of you who have attended a state competition when it's been in your local area. Not sure if any of you actually, if that's been the case, but do you stay overnight or do you send the kids home? Or like, how do you handle it if it's really close by to your local area?
So I'll take this one. So I live in Louisa County, which is central to the state. So like everything's an hour or two, just about, unless we're going a lot further. So we've had a couple of state competitions that are within an hour's distance, but the housing is provided by the state competition, so you don't have to pay for it. So I would personally keep my kids there because it promotes anything that's related to teams. Right? If you send the kids home, you don't know what they're doing, you don't know when they're going to bed. Like you don't have a good team vibe if everybody separates. So you can keep them all together. And then think about it that way. Also, like you may want to check with your school. For my school, you are not on a school field trip if you do not take school transportation. So like we arrive on school transportation and we leave on school transportation. Now, if like kids need to leave early, which sometimes there have been extenuating circumstances and adult will bring one, but that is all for me has already been cleared by my administrator at some level. So I would stay, even if it was right next door. I would be like, we're doing the thing. We're going to go eat in the dining hall. We're all going to get, sleep on these beds that you are going to sleep on when you go to college anyway. Like, let's go.
Yeah, and I'm very much in line with Cam. It's all about the team bonding too. Like being together and spending that time overnight is one of the most memorable things that the kids get to do together. It really bonds them and forms the team going forward. We've never had one in our area, a state competition. So I have never even had that as an option, but I don't think I would use it even if it was at William and Mary. Like, I don't even think I'd use it because it's still all about kind of like keeping the kids together. We study together, we eat together, they're playing cards together, whatever. It's all about that.
Yeah, and we're very rural, so we're on the other end of the state, so we have to travel and stay overnight.
Great. And then this next question, I actually have an answer to, which is VCAP, which is the Virginia Conservation Assistance Program, has been emphasized all year, but its future is uncertain. So just to give you all some context for the state's oral presentation, we are asking you to look at a scenario that really fits in well with this VCAP program. And we're asking you to look at programs like VCAP as a funding source. But VCAP is not currently in the budget for this upcoming year for the state budget. So we've been pushing a lot for advocacy, and we really hope that you as coaches can also help us push for that advocacy. So I'm actually going to put a link in the chat to the advocacy support page for VCAP, because I think that that's a really great lesson that you can impart upon your students is as you're working through this program and talking about programs like VCAP, even if you're not talking about VCAP specifically, but just funded programs like VCAP, talking about how funding can sometimes change, but it's so important to be an advocate for the things that you believe in and kind of providing that real world example of like, look, you can go send a letter to your legislator using this link. I think that that's a really great opportunity to showcase to your kids. So how should that factor into the oral presentation recommendations that you give? I think that you can still fully go ahead with whatever recommendation you are going to go with because, with your help, the future of VCAP is very bright. I don't know if any of you had any thoughts about that, but I just wanted to say that those were my thoughts on it.
My thoughts would be that is outside of my control. And so if the prompt says VCAP, then we're going to look into VCAP.
That is super fair. All right. So then the next question, and again, put your questions in the chat, but I'm just going to keep going through my list while we're waiting for those. The next question that I put together was, what type of team do you usually coach? Is it school-based? Do you do after-school type meetings? Are you rural? Are you urban? And how does that actually shape your coaching style? Or do you think that it does shape your coaching style?
So we are a high school team. The team that we form ends up meeting twice a week after school is our ideal. Sometimes holidays mess up with that, but we try to meet 2 times a week. And then with the main team and the alternates. And then once a month, we have a meeting where we try to get like all the people interested in Envirothon Club, as we call it. We have like a team and then the club. And we do something fun and hands-on where like more people come and get to actually like go outside and do dip netting or go outside and do soil profiles and soil texturing and coloring. Like we try to bring some of the larger community of the school in for that hands-on experience once a month. But the team, the main team and the alternates and any others that are really committed, we try to meet 2 times a week. And one of the challenges you said, like, what kind of team do we end up with? Just because of the nature of Envirothon and how academically challenging it is and how much commitment they need to make, we do end up with students that are kind of like some of the high flyers, which is also hard in some ways because they're committed to 12 other things that they also have to do. So it really does. We do kind of let attendance be one of the things that weeds out those who are going to be on the main team to those who are not, because you can really tell their commitment to Envirothon versus their other activities based on how often they're willing to show up to those meetings.
So I'm a rural high school, and we have one high school in the county. So we meet after school, and that can be challenging because some of my kids have difficulties getting rides. So we work on ride shares, we work on come when you can, and we only meet once a week partly because of that, but partly for the same thing that Rebecca said. A lot of our kids are also involved in other things. So we leave it at once a week so that they can do the other things that they are already interested in. And our standard line is we are always recruiting. So if you're interested, come to practice. And so there are times when there are 10 people at practice. There are times when there are 5 people at practice. Sometimes there are 25 people at practice. And I adapt as I walk and see who is in my room when I come in from bus duty, which can make it really challenging. If you're here, you're here. We're going to do it. So sometimes what we do is we rely on the people who have done Envirothon before to kind of help some of the newer kids along. But I mean, once a week after school, show up when you can.
And I've noticed the same thing. Most of our students are involved in multiple things, so it's hard to get everyone together. I do have a couple of students that actually are not involved in everything, so they're usually at practice. And a lot of times we practice 1 or 2 times a week as well.
Awesome. All right. So then what tips do you have for actually recruiting student team members? Kim, you mentioned that you are always recruiting.
That is the phrase that we say. So if anybody finds out about Envirothon and they're like, what is it? I'd like to come. We just say, yeah, come, show up. And we usually tell kids they should come at least 3 times before they give up. But you know, it just depends. I actually have no idea how to recruit kids. We turn it into like a mini contest. So like when a new kid shows up, I'm like, who brought this person? Oh, this is your recruit. And then like throughout the year, we're like, my recruit is the best. I am never winning this contest. I try and talk about it to my classes all throughout the year and try and recruit for my classes. It doesn't usually work. So I think that my kids recruit other kids, but also I think a lot of it here is going to be word of mouth. So I work really hard to make sure that Envirothon is promoted in my school. I fought to get a banner in the gymnasium, just like every other team that has a banner, and got one. So it hangs next to other people's banners, and my banner has more dates on it than a lot of other sports and activities. So that helps us a little bit. But we also, if there's an event at school where other clubs can volunteer, we volunteer at that. I make sure that if we have anything going on, it goes on the school calendar that's printed all over the school. I make sure that if we have a competition, that it's on the announcements. So like to this afternoon, they're like, good luck to the boys basketball team as they're off to wherever. I make sure that Envirothon gets on those announcements too, so that people have at least heard the word, even if they don't know what it is. And then I usually email all the other science teachers in my department, and I'm just like, hey, keep an eye out for kids that you think would be good for this. And I don't know that we get a lot of kids that way either. I just try and promote it and promote it and promote it, but like, I don't know how I get the kids I get. I mean, I'm grateful, but I don't know how.
Yeah, a lot of the same things that Kim said. We get a lot of names that are interested when we first do we have like a kind of open house that we do in the beginning of the year where all the parents are coming in, they can walk through their kids' schedules and things like that. And there's kind of like a club activity fair set up in one of the hallways where every club has a table. And so people can walk through and kind of like see what the clubs are about and sign up and put their names on. So we always end up with a ton of names after that activity, maybe like 10% of which actually like start showing up like after that. But we always get a few, and it is a lot of word of mouth and a lot of them kind of recruiting their friends and knowing like, oh, this person's younger sister would be really good, or I know this person from this class and they should come too. So it's kind of a lot of that kind of stuff. But also I agree, like putting them on the announcements, making sure that it's visible. We have like a science bulletin board. And so I put like an Envirothon poster and pictures of what we're doing up on that bulletin board with like a poster of a flyer for when our next meeting is, things like that. So anything that you can do to get Envirothon kind of talked about at your school.
Rochelle, I know that you mentioned that you kind of started the program at your school. So you kind of were starting with a baseline of 0. So how did you recruit when you didn't have that pre-existing word of mouth?
One of the things that helped is when I moved to the high school, I had already taught those students through middle school. So I had a good idea of the students that would probably be good in this particular field. And then I just kind of started saying, hey, do you want to do this? Or, and when I started it, I had 6 weeks before competition initially. So I just kind of grabbed some of my top students that I'd had in the past and I said, do you want to do this? And, or I said, we're going to do this. So we started like that. I just kind of volunteered them what we were going to do. And a couple of them have stuck with me ever since. So I have 2 of them that has been with me since, and they graduate this year. So I'm going to miss those 2. We'll have to start fresh next year. We consolidate. So I'm curious to see how that does, because there were 2 schools in our county that has never had an Envirothon team, and now they'll be introduced to it next year.
All right. So the next question I had was, what is the actual structuring of your team? So do you do things like having a team captain or having one student act as a specialist where they are the forestry student? Or is there another, way that you're structuring things to that might be unique or that other coaches might be interested in?
Um, we have, there are lots of parts to that question. Okay, so uh, so we do have a team captain that we name every year, and they're kind of in charge of like communication at the kid level. Obviously, we send out emails, and we have a remind group that I can send out kind of emails to everybody, but the team captain is able to like have a group chat with just the kids, and that is more powerful than anything I could send out. So that is really important, and they also keep them on task in terms of what is the agenda for the meetings and what do we need to accomplish, when do we need to start having a practice presentation ready, when do we need to have practice judges come in. They kind of have like that kind of overall arching kind of what are our goals that we need to meet. And then we do have each of the 5 main team members is trained or is responsible for one specialty. So we have like a soils person and a forestry person. When we went to the international competition, we gave everyone like a secondary subject too. So it was like, oh, you're in charge of forestry and like these, because the first year we went to internationals, we kind of kept the same. Everyone had a speciality. And we realized that we got to the test and like one kid was trying to fill out the entire test and everyone else was sitting around waiting. So then we changed our strategy, and it was, we gave them like, you're like still forestry, but then you've got these two two key topics from aquatics and these 2 key topics from wildlife. So everyone had like a little piece to contribute to every test. And we found that that worked pretty well at internationals. Because during our meetings, we have the specialists train the other kids. They all end up getting enough that at the state level, everyone can contribute. But nationals is just so different because it's a totally new set of objectives and a totally new location and everything. So that was the way we handled that.
We don't usually set a team captain until it's time for competition because then we have to put it on the paperwork. So we have what we call the team queen. And the team queen is the person who is supposed to keep the kids going and keep them in line. Um, and it started with someone who named herself queen many years ago. And then when she graduated, she passed the queendom down. And then when that person graduated, they passed the queendom down. And there's a lot of discussion of the current queen of who is going to be the next queen. And queens do not have to be girls. In fact, my last 3 queens have been boys, and no one cares. And that is the person who we also have a group text where the kids have a text that I am not in because I tell them they need one they can talk trash about me in. And then when we get to actual competition, we talk about like, okay, what should a team captain do versus what should the team queen do? And then we choose a team captain after that. And they just think it's funny. So that's what we do. For my practice, we just kind of teach the things that we want to do. We go over the things. And then as kids show interest in something, then I give them more resources. So my kids specialize in the things that interest them. Which is not going to be a whole topic. So like you might be interested in soils, but you might be interested in like I have a kid who's super into maps right now. And so he's doing anything related to maps in any aspect. And so we kind of go that way. It's just if you're interested, then I'm going to give you some resources and then you can do what you want with those. There is a question in the chat about giving your kids homework. I do not assign them homework. I think they have enough homework for their other life. But by giving them things that they're interested in, then they're more likely to sort of look them up themselves. And all of my kids have my phone number. And they know that if they text me after 9 o'clock, I will answer them at 5:30 in the morning. But like I get kids who text me stuff all the time. What's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? And so then I also use that as a way to like, oh, here's a resource. Oh, do you need to come borrow a bug book? Like whatever it is you're interested in, here's a resource. Go look it up. You get into it. Come back and tell me something you learned.
I'm kind of like you with a team captain. It's kind of a last minute thing. I've looked at the schedule for our area competition and it's during our senior trip. So I have a couple students that are you going? Are you going on your senior trip or are you going to not go and compete in the marathon? So I'm in a little bit of a pickle at the moment. So I don't know exactly who I'm going to, kind of be our leader, but we do split up the different topics. And then they have a packet that sometimes if they want to take home and look through, or, they can, as far as some of them working on research. And then 3 of my students are YCLI members that's on the Envirothon team. So they're, back and forth with different study, as far as what they're studying, what they're looking at and going over. So they stay pretty busy.
For Rebecca and Rochelle, I want to go back to that question of if you give your kids homework, since that was one of the questions in the chat.
We don't like assign homework like, oh, you need to have this done by the next meeting. Nothing as formal as that at all. I would say that there is definitely an expectation that they do some work at home, because we know that when we're together as a team, like every once in a while we'll do like trainings or we'll go outside, we'll do something. But when we're together as a team, a lot of that time is spent working towards the oral presentation and doing stuff that they need to be collaborative on. And studying the objectives and like answering the questions of the objectives is not necessarily something, we don't all have to be together in the same room for them to be like researching objectives and putting together PowerPoint presentations. So, there is kind of an expectation that they're going to do some of that at home. And we do put out like a schedule for like the whole month. Like, okay, we're going to have like a aquatics training day this day. And so the aquatics person knows that they need to prepare a PowerPoint on a couple of objectives or whatever, specifically for that day. We try to give them lots of notice so that it's not like you're having like homework, like their class homework. But obviously their schoolwork would obviously come first. And if they came to us and we're like, I wasn't able to finish the PowerPoint for today, we'd be like, no problem, do it next week. So it's not, I feel like they have to do something at home or else we would not be able to get through everything. But we don't have like assigned homework.
Yeah, I agree with that. We create the PowerPoint that is shared between, all the students, and they'll work on it some as they go. Or just the other day, I said, okay, I need you to research this topic, or I need you to be looking at this topic. And then, we'll meet next week and let's see what you've completed. And then some kids have, like I said, one girl in particular is kind of taken up interest, and she's already like, I've looked through this, I've already looked through that. So I'm very pleased with that, because I've not necessarily had that yet.
All right. So then moving forward to an actual competition day, what do you all do to prepare both yourselves and your teams for the day of a competition?
So I mentioned before that we have practice judges that come in. So when we get to the point where the kids have kind of have a solid presentation, and they're ready to kind of share it and get feedback, we will put out an email to teachers at the school and see if any teachers want to come in and maybe judge one day. And when I say judge, they have the rubric in front of them, but they're not actually filling out the rubric. It's more just like giving feedback on presentation, or what questions do they have? Because practicing the answering questions part, I think is one really important aspect of the oral presentation that it's hard for us as coaches to replicate, because we end up hearing it so many times that it's like, what new questions would I ask? So the practice judges are good for that. And then we also have some local organizations that we pull from, that we ask them to come in and be a practice judge one day. So we do probably 2 or 3 of those like kind of practice judge run throughs with the presentation, and to just get them to the point where they're feeling comfortable with that. Last year we put together, like the coaches looked at the objectives, and we like put together practice tests that we gave the kids that they could then work on together at maybe a meeting or something. So those are some of the things we do to prepare for a competition. Obviously collecting permission slips, telling them what to pack, that kind of stuff also goes along. Filling out medication forms. It's actually a big thing, guys. If you have any kids on your team that need prescription medication, there are like multiple forms that you need to fill out from the school, and they need to get a doctor's signature and everything. And that sometimes takes time. So, because they're not allowed to give themselves the medication. So, you need to, as the coach, hold it and give it to them at the prescribed time and then fill out the forms. So if you have anyone that needs prescription medication, don't do that like the day before the competition, because you'll be in trouble.
Sometimes we invite teachers in to be practice judges, but usually we have them invite their friends. Because their friends are their worst critics, and they'll be like, you can't stand still, and you mumbled all this. So we usually have them invite somebody in, and then they watch the presentation. We have a period in the middle of our day called regroup. And so sometimes I organize for my Envirothon kids to come during a regroup period, which my regular students are in, and they present during that. And actually, that has been really interesting because the kids that are in my regroup have no idea what this is about or anything. And I have had some amazing questions from those kids because they get into it. They're like, wait, no, how does this work? Like, I don't understand this. And so that actually has worked really well, but that depends on getting permission from each of my kids' regroups, because like you're and it's supposed to be in an assigned place, but generally my students are good enough that it's not something I need to worry about. But we talk about it ahead of time, like, which period could you most miss your regroup for? And we kind of work on that. And that's been really valuable. But again, invite your friends to come and then they'll tear you apart. It's great. For us, in terms of ahead of time, we are always going to drive an hour somewhere at least. And so we talk about like what time you need to be here. I give them a half sheet that says what you should have with you, what you should have on. And then I provide lunch for my students. So a lot of my students come from not very much, and that has historically been true. So one thing I do for a competition is I go to the store and I buy all the things that we need. I buy the apples, the loaves of bread, the chips, whatever. And then I feed everybody so that I don't have to worry about kids not having food, which seems like a weird thing, but like I have been at competitions where like some kid forgot their lunch, and then what are they going to do? Like, I'm going to tell you what they're going to do. Bring your kid to my group and we will give them a ham and cheese sandwich. Like, don't worry, we got plenty. So I have to make sure that I go to the grocery store. I also make sure the kids have fruit snacks in their pocket. And so their goal is to eat their fruit snacks during oral presentation prep. That way they got a little bit of sugar, they got a little bit of calm. And then the other thing I do is the practice we have before competition, I say, okay, this is how it could go. You'll be at this table, you'll do this test, then you're going to move, over here, and then you're going to be at this table and you're going to do that. So I kind of like tell them like what a competition is going to look like, so that way they can kind of visualize it as they go. And then sometimes we have the schedule ahead of time and sometimes we don't, and it doesn't matter, but like just knowing that you're going to go from this to this to this, and that there is an oral presentation prep period, and stuff like that, just kind of like so they know what to expect, which is really important when you have teams that have never been there before, or even if you just have one kid who's never been there before, trying to just like give them an idea of what to expect for the day.
Well, like I said, I'm still kind of in that new phase. So the past 2 years have been learning experiences for us. Coming in with just, like I said, six weeks or so to prep. It was kind of one of those, we just winged it. We went with it, and made it work. Then I learned a lot that year. And then last year we reached several different obstacles and we missed up to 7 weeks of school and 3 weeks right before, during prep time, as far as in February with the flood. So I hope that third year is a charm for us.
I do want to add on to this as we're talking about competition structures that the competition structure itself, like the schedule, if you get something like an oral presentation prep time, whether you get a lunch or if you should be expected to bring a lunch, all of those things can differ based on whether you're at an area competition and also which area competition, or if you're at the state competition. So the most important thing is just that you read whatever information is provided to you by either your local soil and water district or whoever the district is that's running that competition. So like for the state, for example, I will send out something to all of the coaches saying, here's the schedule, here's, what meals will be provided for you, you will need to do this meal before you get there, that kind of thing. So it can change and it can look a little different based on which competition you're at. But just know that you should be able to get that kind of logistic information ahead of time. And like Kim said, provide that information to your students as well. And I guess going off of that, was there anything about a competition that surprised any of you that you wish you would have known, maybe like at your first competition? Oh, I didn't know that this was going to be a part of it, or this was something that I wasn't expecting, and roadblocks, just tips and tricks.
For oral presentation, it is sometimes important to consider wind. So I have been at a competition that was super windy and like the screen blew all over the place and like it flustered the kids so much. So now I make sure that they realize that if it is windy, somebody should stand on either side of the screen and hold it so that it flaps around less. Um, I I will say, like I mentioned earlier, I coached for a long time and was the fourth place team out of four teams. And the first time I went to a regional competition was because there were only two teams in my district. So we got a free pass to regionals, and I learned a lot going to regionals because the types of questions that my kids were being asked to answer at districts at that time were nothing like the questions that the kids were answering at regionals. And so I was lucky in that year that we went, I had a junior team. I think they were sophomores and juniors. And so those kids got to experience a district competition. They got to experience a regional competition. And we learned a lot in those 2 years. And then kind of like the next year, we were able to build on that and then learn like, okay, we need to know more in depth. We need to cover more of these topics, like that sort of thing. And I mean, obviously growing pains, but I mean, if I'd gone to regionals earlier, then I might have learned it earlier, but I didn't get there.
I would say the only things that have kind of surprised us were usually around meals and food, kind of like Kim was talking about before. They always need food. They're high schoolers. So like arriving at a training and realizing lunch wasn't provided, even though it had been provided for years in the past, or going and realizing that like the lunch was that because of our schedule, they had us at like 3 tests and then oral presentation. And so our lunch wasn't scheduled until like 1:30 and these kids were going to be like starving. So things like that, where we had to like run out like really quick to like Wawa or the grocery store and like get them food so that they could like eat at when they needed to. That's the only thing I can think of really in terms of roadblocks. Definitely sometimes when, the soil pit is filled with water and you just have to do it. Like that's just the nature of the beast. Definitely some times where the kids had to navigate through some poison ivy on their way to measuring the trees at the forestry station. That hasn't been a problem in the years recently, but there are stories that Mr. Dubé tells of all the horror stories. And believe me, if there's a horror story, he tells it every single year. So you're going to hear it lots of times. And so there's been things, but some of that is like part of the adventure. They kind of like the all of those kind of unknowns, and it's also a bonding experience when you go into that. So as prepared as you can make them in terms of what the schedule is going to be is just helps ease their mind. But there's always going to be things that go wrong. You just kind of got to go with it. Yeah.
One of the things that comes to my mind is if you have a student that uses inhalers. There was one competition where it was really hot, and then if you have students that pass out or get sick on you, that is one thing that come to my mind. It seemed like at state, I had a couple girls kind of get sick, or one of them didn't have her inhaler, and I was like, we got to have it. So, just trying to keep that in mind for those students, so you could be prepared.
I carry a bag that is known as the mom bag that has hair ties, Sharpies, Band-Aids, tampons, Imodium, Tums, Advil, Tylenol. Like every year we're like, oh, what did we need that wasn't in the mom bag? Like what can we stick in there? So it's got like a little bit of arts and crafts and then like, oh, I don't know. There's so much stuff in it. It's very heavy, but the mom bag has a lot of stuff in it for hopefully any emergency that we can think of. It also includes powdered coffee, which is for me. It's terrible powdered coffee, but like if I need some caffeine, we need some caffeine.
All right. How do you support students that have different learning styles or even different experiences with the content?
I think for that, it's just important to have kind of different ways that you're presenting the material. So not always having every single thing being listening to a PowerPoint or having every single thing being talking through a PowerPoint, making sure you have a sprinkling of, days when you go outside and actually practice measuring the trees, have practice using a prism, practice using, so we, every once in a while we'll have kind of like a tools application day where we go outside and we're like, okay, this is all like the aquatics tools, and we do some water chemistry testing and we talk about it. So that you have, a little bit of hands-on mixed in with all the listening that they tend to do a lot. And the other thing I would say is, visuals. Like we encourage students when they're like teaching their peers or training them to have PowerPoints that are pretty much just images, and they are like basically analyzing the images and talking about and asking them questions. So trying to have visual stuff in there too, but really it's diversifying and not having every single meeting look exactly the same.
I think for us, we just try and do things as hands-on, like matching cards or having the tools in front of you, or you're not allowed to sit down while we're talking about this. Like I have practice on Friday, which is probably the worst day to do it. But Friday is the day that nothing else happens first thing in the afternoon. And so like I think for me, it's not learning style as much as like, okay, it's Friday. I've taught kids for like all 5 days this week. I don't want to be here, except for I do want to be here because here come my favorite kids. What can we do to keep this interesting, keep it fresh? Um, and then make sure that they're getting the information if they want it. And I think part of it too is like diversifying learning styles. Like if they don't know what works for them, then they should try what you're doing and then they should try it on their own. And that's where you be like, hey, are you interested in this? You go find something. You go tell me what it is. So like I hate watching videos on YouTube. I cannot stand it. And they're always like, no, you should find a video for us. I'm like, no, 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 you find the video. Like, I do not want to watch this video to find out if it's any good. You do it and you tell me, and then I'll share it with everybody else. It'll be fine.
Sorry, I'm having to use my cell phone, so that's why it's everywhere. And I have my anyway, it's crazy, always crazy at my house. Usually I have found that a lot. I was asking Byron today about a training. That is one way I'm trying to get some of my students that's never been to an Envirothon competition is, finding one of those trainings to take them to. Finding someone that can come in and talk to the students and someone that can go over some things that I don't necessarily go over or practice with them.
All right, great. And then we've kind of touched on the idea of oral presentations a little bit throughout. But do you all have any like, you know, your best tips for preparing the oral presentation? Like, how do you actually get that from a blank PowerPoint to something that you are presenting at a competition?
So I think for us, the first thing is that the students make the PowerPoint and they kind of make slides based on looking at the rubric and like what are the things they need to hit on. And obviously they share it among everyone, so everyone's kind of like editing the same document. They put a lot of thought, for some reason, more than I think they really need to, into like what's the background gonna be, like the look of like the background slide. And I'm like, okay, guys, awesome. Let's not spend an entire meeting discussing the background of the slide, but okay. And like what fonts are they going to use and what's their color scheme? So they kind of just like from a design perspective, they, you know, take it and run with it. And then it's kind of like every single time, like we had them do kind of like a baseline presentation of like the bare bones of like, what do you have right now? Like, I don't care how raw it is, we need to see what you have. And so we just had them stand up and do what they had. And there were holes and there were things, but it's good for them to recognize where those holes are and what research they still need to do and things like that. So I guess getting kind of like the slide, and also the other thing that they like to do with assigning slides like for the speakers, so that the people know who's in charge of like this topic speaking. And that's based on like, first of all, their specialist, if it fits, like if there's a specific thing about how the topic ties into wildlife conservation, then the wildlife person is like, oh, I'll talk about that. But then if it doesn't really fall into any of the disciplines, then it'll just be based on their interest, or who kind of makes sense from flow perspective to talk next. So once they like know which slides and which parts of the speech they're in charge of, then they, you know, start writing their speech and lots of editing in multiple times. And till they feel like they are comfortable with what they need to present. Yeah.
I don't let my kids change the background. I'm like, it is this color, white, and this font, the end. It has to be at least this size. I don't let them mess with that because I'm like, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. You got to like focus on the pictures that you're putting on there and you're very much mellow text. So I could definitely see that rabbit holing, which is probably why I'm just like, no, this is right here. This is what you get. And then what our kids do for the first time is they get together and we get that giant poster paper and we have them outline like kind of like what they think the outline will be. And then I have them take it downstairs to an English teacher and let them figure out if this is a good outline. And some of them are like, some of this really goes with the content that they're learning in terms of planning in an English class anyway. So I kind of just like push that off on somebody else. And then, like Rebecca said, there's a shared document, and then they all work on it in there together.
Hi, I'm Amanda Dorton. I'm running a little bit late. I had an appointment, but I have my kids treat it like a research paper for an English class, and I'm just like the specialist that helps them tweak it. And once they get their paper done, I have the English teacher look over it. And then I have my colleague look over it when he comes over to our school for the chemistry class. Then once we're happy with the paper, then I have at least one person on the team that is really artistic. And she and I usually go on Canva and pick something that kind of fits the theme. And I just have her take that research paper and break it up into different categories onto the presentation. And after she does that, then I make the kids get together and, you know, match up the slides with different parts of the paper to create their note cards.
Thank you, Amanda. I know that we're coming up to 5 o'clock, so we're coming to kind of the end of this, but does anyone else have any questions that they'd really like to either hear from the perspective of our panelists or just put out to the group? Just any other questions as we're wrapping up?
I do, Byron, have just two documents that I wanted to show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, gosh, it's been a while since I did this. Here we go for now. So I just wanted to show, this is, when we're trying to figure out like who's going to be main team versus alternate. One of the things that we have to do to have them, to like basically earn points towards a rubric, which I'll share with you in a second, is we actually have them give practice presentations. And so we took this, rubric from, we obviously modified it from the one that they use in the actual competition. And we say, okay, here's going to be your rubric for this little practice presentation. And so we give all the students, all of their peers, one of these, and then the person stands up and gives their presentation. And we add up the scores, and same as states, we like drop the highest and the lowest, whatever, in terms of giving them an average. But I just wanted to show you, this is kind of like a modified, and we have them create a review activity that goes along with whatever objectives. We have to pick 1 or 2 objectives to talk. Actually, it has to be at least 2 to talk on, because one of the things is, did they show connections between the objectives? Did they use visual aids well? Were they good presenters? Did they cite their resources? Things like that. And then also one of them is, questions. So we do say, that everyone has to answer at least 2 questions after their practice presentation and get graded on that. And then so what we use that as one of the things that we put into the rubric that does this. So this is the oral presentation scores from all the different people, and then they get an average. And then we're about to give the test actually on Thursday, so they don't have test scores yet. And then we'll also put in their attendance. So we put all those kind of together to get an overall like score. And then the highest ones would be the main team members. The next 2 would be the alternates. And then we also have a vote where the kids basically just rank them from first to last. The kids didn't want to do that, but there was one year that we had a like pretty close tie, and we needed a tiebreaker. And so we let them kind of like decide who they wanted to have be the second alternate or whatever. So I just wanted to show those as examples of things you could use. If there's, questions about like, oh, well, I want to be on the main team, but so do I, and there's not enough spots or whatever. So just something I thought might be helpful.
Thank you, Rebecca. Did anyone else have anything that they wanted to ask or discuss or anything like that? All right, well, it's 5 o'clock exactly.
I have one thing that I'm going to add. So sometimes fundraising is an issue. So this year, I don't know how I got this email, but I'm going to email them next year, but we got asked to run the concession stand at a football game. And so I had to provide adults, which was the hardest part. So I like told all the kids, I was like, hey, can we do this? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, okay, but I need you to convince your parents. But then I also emailed like the science department, and I emailed like a couple community members that like usually are pretty supportive of Envirothon. And I was like, hey, I need like at least 6 adults to help run the concession stand. And it was one night. I mean, it was one night from like 5 to 10:30, but it was forever. But like, we made a decent amount of money from that. And what I use the money for is to get my kids shirts. I use it to pay for snacks at practice. And I use it to pay for meals at competitions, or like after competition, we'll go out for ice cream or something like that. But when I fundraise, all my money goes into my school account. So like everything has to be pre-approved by the bookkeeper. But anyway, we got invited to do that, and it was a really good idea. But I was surprised about the football game, but because we did that, they now want us to do the basketball games. I guess nobody else wants to do them. We're not, because I can't get my adults. Like I can get my adults like for one day, but like all the days is too many. But find out what kind of like who runs your concessions at your school. You might be able to help with fundraising that way. Otherwise, Bank of Martinac pays for the things. It's fine.
Yeah, fundraising is a major problem. Like there's just never any money. We usually have the kids like volunteer, like take turns, like one kid brings in snacks for 1 week and the next kid brings in snacks for the next week, and then I bring in snacks for 1 week. But it's a lot of stuff. So yeah, fundraising is constantly an issue. That's a really great idea, Kim. I might look into that.
Also, just to add to the fundraising, again, definitely reach out to your local soil and water conservation districts if you haven't, because some of them have money set aside for Envirothon. Not every single one is able to provide all of the things that you might need, but they might be able to help, or even if they can't help financially, they can help with content. They can help with getting you connections to local people who work in natural resources. So those local soil and water conservation districts are really going to be your best friend through the Envirothon process, and I really implore you to lean on them where you can. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this. This is, I think, has been very helpful. It's great to get coaches all together. We don't have a lot of opportunities to do this, to actually, have coaches talk to each other. So, thank you all so much for your time. Like I said, I've recorded this meeting, so I'll send it out to all of you, put it on our website, all of that good stuff. So, if you ever want to check back to it, you can. And I'll also, when I send it out, I'll send out some of those links to the things that are coming up so that you have them on your schedule and on the horizon. But other than that, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining.